home inspection regulations in New Hampshire. Good for you to be aware of, certainly. It's been a couple of years now that we've had licensing in New Hampshire. I'm sure you've experienced it. I'm sure there's still some out there that are performing home inspections and don't have that license. And obviously, no different than I think licensing is good for your industry. I think it's good for our industry. So that's why, again, to me, a very positive thing for the home inspection business. So again, we have to be licensed to perform a standard home inspection. And in this case, I'm going to talk a little too about, for us as an engineer performing a home inspection, there's some differences, and so good things to kind of be aware of. So obviously, as an engineer performing a home inspection, I certainly have to meet the basic licensing requirements, and there are some differences with engineers. But in addition, obviously, I need to meet engineering licensing requirements. So we'll talk about some of those. So some of the differences. Obviously, as an engineer, I need a minimum of the college degree, the 4 years of training after college before I can earn an engineer's license. Home inspector is going to get 80 hours of training. I spoke of the experience, and there's no specific experience required for conventional home inspector. And then to get your engineer's license, very intense. There's a engineering training license that we take fresh out of college typically, and then there's your principles and practice exam, which is a full day event. So when you're studying the garden-style condominium, doing the home inspection on that, and there's a simple electric panel, and there's some appliances we're going to test, and we're going to run the heating and cooling. There's not a lot of engineering, right, in that one. Let's go to the other extreme, the 300-year-old house here in Portsmouth that's had 5 additions, and there's a lot of complexity there, and a lot of potentially structural questions and foundation that might be heaving inward, and I think those are the cases, where an engineer can really start adding some value. Again, some of the differences, and one of the important ones that I'd emphasize is the peer review process is very important as part of maintaining my engineer's license is kind of a constant interaction with other engineers, and to me it's good. It keeps us sharp, it keeps us current, so part of what we do. So some examples, and I think these are good examples that help you kind of appreciate. And again, if you see a situation coming up where you think that this kind of extra level would be helpful, here's some good reasons. So standard home inspection is going to say there's a crack in the foundation, right? The engineer is going to say there's a crack in the foundation that is not structurally significant. Very important difference, right? Because I get lots of phone calls. We just had our home inspection done, and there's a crack in the foundation, and now we need an engineer. Exactly. So what do you think I charge to go out and inspect a foundation crack? $500, exactly. The point is, and I'm sure you can relate to this, it's all the mobilization, right? It's the office setting up the job and making arrangements, and the engineer getting in his car or her car and driving out to the job and writing a report. It's the effort involved in looking at a foundation crack isn't that much smaller than the effort to do the whole home inspection. So again, very classic example of that. Electrical example, the house has 100 ampere service. Licensed engineer is going to say 100 ampere service is adequate. And that's important, right? Because how many consumers have I had? They see that relatively small 100 amp panel, and they say, well, I don't know. My mom tells me, or my dad tells me I need 200 amps. And well, okay, let's talk about why. This house has a gas range, it's got a gas-fired furnace, it's got a gas dryer. You don't need 200 amps, So to me, again, it's the value. It's this idea of providing what I call definitive answers about things, whether it's really adequate or not.